What if I told you that A Christmas Carol, it was never about Christmas benevolence or redemption, but about you waking up one day and realizing that the life you built is a castle made of ashes? What if Scrooge's story wasn't a moral fable to teach charity, but a brutal mirror on all the paths you've silenced, all the affections you've killed, all the versions of yourself you've buried under the weight of survival? Stop for a moment. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes and listen. What does the silence around you say about the life you've chosen? Scrooge is rich but lonely. He lives in a cold office, surrounded by papers and numbers, shut away in his rooms as if Christmas were a virus he's been vaccinated against since childhood. He receives visitors, a generous nephew, a poor employee, guardians of human suffering, and he answers them all with the same spirit: farce. But on Christmas Eve, the past rears its ugly head. The ghost of Marley, his former partner, appears, wearing heavy chains, twisted nails, and empty eyes, and warns him, "If you continue like this, your fate will be the same as mine, and my fate is eternal suffering." Thus begins the journey, not to save Christmas, but to save one's own soul. Have you ever felt this way? As if, after so much time denying feelings, closing doors, stealing joy from yourself and others, you noticed something inside you that whispered, "This wasn't supposed to be you." What if the three ghosts come not just for Scrooge, but for everyone who has forgotten how to be moved, how to give of themselves, how to allow themselves to be touched by life? What if this story isn't about becoming a good person, but about coming back? Return to the boy who once cried in front of a book, who loved a woman with all his heart, who believed in dreams that seemed too silly to grow up with him. What happens when the ghosts of the past, present, and future start showing you who you were, who you are, and who you will become if you don't change anything? Because the real Christmas story isn't about giving, it's about returning, about waking up in the middle of the night and thinking that you don't want to die like Scrooge, loved by no one, mourned by no one, forgotten by everyone. Stay with me, and you will learn 4 important lessons when the boy still knew how to cry. The first to appear is the ghost of Christmas past, young, luminous, with a warm touch as if carrying the scent of burning wood and childhood sweets. And it takes Scrooge not to just any place, but to his own past, to an isolated school, where a lonely boy read stories aloud to escape the weight of abandonment. There, the viewer sees what no one else has seen. Scrooge wasn't born cold. He froze. At that school, the boy was forgotten. Distant parents, long winters, unheated rooms. He was left behind while the others returned home for the holidays. And what kept him alive? Stories, books, dreams. He talked with characters, laughed with elves, cried with heroes. But amidst this abandonment, there is one hope: his sister Fan, the only person he loves unconditionally. She returns to get him, emotional, laughing, hugging him as if he were the center of her world, and takes him home, promising, "You will never be alone again." And here lies the heart of the wound. Scrooge learned to love in that lap. He grasped the warmth, the surrender, the presence. But sadly, Fan dies young, and with her dies all his belief that love can endure, and the faith that someone can choose to stay. Then the ghost shows young Ebenezer working with Fezziwig, a generous, carefree boss who turns the office into a dance hall at Christmas. There's music, food, dancing, laughter, and young Scrooge joins in. He dances, he laughs, he shines. See everything he once was, a man capable of joy, of connection, of presence. And then, the woman, Belle. Beautiful, wonderful, radiant Belle, the love of his life. She looks at him tenderly but firmly and says to him, "You no longer see me. What you love now is gold, and as the gold grows, I disappear." She broke off the engagement, and young Scrooge weeps. But instead of changing, he chooses to stay. He chooses power. He chooses security. He chooses what cannot die, cannot betray, cannot abandon. And so the boy who cried with books, who danced with friends, who loved with all his heart, is finally laid to rest. And the man born in his place is Scrooge, the one who answers everything with humbug. Have you ever killed a version of yourself like this? Have you ever buried dreams for fear they weren't realistic? Have you silenced the artist, the dreamer, the lover within you because life planned a serious man, a responsible woman, an adult who doesn't deceive himself? How many times have you chosen safety over true risk, stable over vibrant, surviving over living? The ghost of the past doesn't show mistakes, it shows losses. It shows what was sacrificed in the name of protection. And the most painful part of all, it shows that everything was chosen, thought through. Scrooge could have cried with Belle and changed. He could have been grateful for the security his sister gave him, while he still could, with more strength. He could have continued dancing, but no. And the castle that was built on the foundations of abandonment, fear, and grief was absorbed, assimilated, and embraced. And you? In what part of your childhood do you still live, imprison yourself, and have you lost the courage to face, to run away, to go back? The ghost of the present. When the lives of others reflect you, the second visitor is the ghost of Christmas present. Gigantic like an ivy wreath, seated on a banquet throne, dressed in green robes and with eyes that shine with empathy. He takes Scrooge not to his riches, but to the homes of others. To the home of Bob Cratchit, his clerk, poor but with a family that pulses with love. Even in the cold, even with little food, there's joy, there's laughter, there's singing. It's Tiny Tim, the sickly frail boy with weak legs but with a look of innocence that pierces the walls of time. They know they might lose Tim, but what do? They give thanks for being together, for having each other, for being able to love, even through the pain. Scrooge for the first time feels. He cries. He asks, "Is Tim going to die?" And the ghost answers in his own words, "If the chains are not changed, yes." Here is the most brutal blow. The monster that Scrooge thought the world was, poverty, suffering, fragility, is precisely what contains the most richness, affection, presence, meaning. And you? Do you wake up thinking about having to conquer? Your mind is filled with numbers, results, and achievements, or even having nothing, but corroded by the desire to have to possess, spending your meager savings on gambling, betting on the improbability of winning the lottery. Are you also possessed by the desire for ambition? And have you forgotten that what saves is what can't be bought? Have you ever spent days, months, years putting off the hug, the I love you, the time with the one you love, because you were busy building something that, in the end, won't be remembered? The ghost shows other Christmases, ordinary homes, ordinary people, and in each one there is warmth, there is singing, there is gathering, and Scrooge, the man who has everything, realizes he has nothing because he has no one to give it to. He has no hands to hold. He has no heart to give. The present, as a dimension, is what Scrooge most denied. He lived in the past, bitter, in the future, calculating profits, but never in the now, never in the present. And this is where the story catches up with us. Christmas isn't about gifts. It's about presence. It's about being. It's about allowing yourself to be touched. It's about accepting that life only passes once, and if you're not here, it will pass without you. Have you ever let life pass you by like this? Working too much? Waiting for a certain day? Thinking that later you will allow yourself to be happy? Scrooge watches his nephew Fred's Christmas. Simple surroundings, rustic food, loud laughter, and everyone talks about him. Sadly, they say, "Poor Scrooge. If only he'd come, he could be happy." And he who judged others as inferior discovers that he is the one who needs help the most. How many times have you rejected invitations, affection, opportunities for connection, out of pride, out of fear, because you felt like you didn't belong? The present doesn't forgive absence. It registers itself. And when you finally look back, you won't see numbers, assets, or achievements, but you'll see many holes, many voids. Voids that should have been filled by being present with the one you love. The ghost of the future. When your burial has no tears. The third and final visitor doesn't speak. He's the ghost of Christmas yet to come. A walking tombstone with a black cloak, his face hidden, his gait slow as if at a wake. It doesn't make promises. It shows consequences, but rather a tea party of consequences of the results of choices. He takes Scrooge to a market where two men are trading a stolen blanket. Another is selling the spoon from his grave. A third is selling the curtains from the bed where he died. They say, it's worth stealing from a man who hasn't left a lasting impression. And then in the grave, abandoned, neglected, nameless, the ghost points to the ground, and Scrooge understands. It's his, and no one came. No mourning, no tears, no, I miss you. And the most devastating part, when he asks about Tiny Tim, the ghost reveals, the boy is dead. Because Scrooge hasn't changed. He hasn't helped. And he falls to his knees. Not out of fear of hell, for he discovered he already lived there, but rather out of fear of having lived in vain. This is the most heard lament from those who work with terminally ill patients. The sadness of not having lived, of not having loved riskily. Because the real hell isn't the fire. It's the silence after you're gone. It is the emptiness in the hearts of those who could have loved you but were pushed out far away by your coldness. It's the disregard with which the world treats your memory because you were never really in it. Have you thought about your funeral? How many people came out of love, not obligation? Who would cry for you with true pain? Who would say, the world has become smaller? Or are they just interrupted business, unsigned papers, delayed contracts? The ghost of the future does not promise safety. He shows the consequences. And Scrooge, for the first time, chooses change, not out of threat, but out of desire. He wants to be mourned. He wants to be remembered. He wants to have made a difference. And here's the key. Transformation only begins when you stop fearing death and start fearing insignificance. You don't want to die afraid. You want to die with meaning. And there is only one way to ensure this. Live as if each day were the last that someone could remember your name with love. The morning of the next day, when a monster wakes up a human for the first time, Scrooge wakes up the next day. Christmas. It's still dawn. He remembers everything, and his first impulse is to look out the window. The world is there. Snow, lights, stillness. But he is different. Why he changed? Until screaming. He hires a boy on the street to buy the biggest turkey from the butcher's shop and sends him to Cratchit's house. He writes a generous check to charity. He goes to the office, scares Bob, and promotes him, saying, "Don't look so pale, my good man. You're going to get a raise." And he goes to his nephew Fred's Christmas lunch. He arrives drunk with joy, greets everyone, hugs, laughs, cries, and says, "Forgive me for missing so many Christmases." And he begins to live like this, not out of obligation, by choice, by rediscovery. But notice, he doesn't become a saint, a selfless person. He becomes a man at first, a man who learned to return to himself. It's not charity that will save you. It's a reconnection with the past, with the present, with affection, with humanity itself. Have you ever had a morning like this? Did you wake up and really decide to change? Because the lie is that transformation needs to be slow. That's not true. In fact, it only takes a second, an instant of clarity, a look at what you've become and a silent scream. No, this can't be the end. Scrooge did not convert. He returned. To the boy who cried with stories, to the young man who danced with Fezziwig, to the lover who cried with Belle. And the miracle isn't Christmas. It's the fact that, even after years of ashes, it's still possible to light a new fire. A Christmas Carol. It's not about giving alms on the 25th. It's about not dying before dying. Scrooge wasn't saved by ghosts. He was saved by the memory of who he once was. The most powerful thing about all of this is that you can still change. You can still come back. It can still transform from a monstrous being into a human. Because the worst Christmas there is not the one you spend alone. That's what you go through pretending. And worse, pretending to yourself. If this story touched you, if you saw a bit of Scrooge in yourself, subscribe now. Activate the bell so you don't miss the next stories that will bring you back to yourself. Share with those who need to hear that it's not too late, that you can still come back, that you can still be loved. And in the comments, tell me, what part of you needs to be resurrected, brought to life? Who were you before you learned to survive? I'm here, reading every word. Until the next story, until the next awakening.